There are people in the world who understand each other without having met. Not because they are alike. They were not alike in any way that a surface examination would reveal. One had spent his life building a network of loyalty and discretion in the Western tradition, on the limestone coast of Ireland, through the particular kind of power that operated in the spaces between the law and its enforcement. The other had built an empire of a different kind in the Eastern tradition, in a city of 25 million, through the particular kind of authority that required no announcement. They had never been in the same room. They had never exchanged a word. They had, as of the evening of the 41-minute meeting, become aware of each other. And they already understood each other perfectly, because they were both looking at the same situation from opposite sides of it. And the situation had a name, and the name was Sienna. He had told Sung-hyun on the drive home from the hotel to find out who she really was. Not her professional history, he had that, not her consulting record, her publications, her client relationships. He had assembled all of that within 72 hours of learning her name. He had said, find out who she is, the part she doesn't put in a biography. Sung-hyun had understood what this meant. He had spent the night finding it. The file contained several things Jae-Won had not known. Her parents, both of them, had died when she was 16 years old, a car accident. Her father at the wheel, returning from a professional conference. The circumstances were in the file. Jae-Won read that section twice. Her mother, Mardi Delacroix, born Calloway, had been a guidance counselor at Tulane University. She had died in the same accident, both of them the same night. Jae-Won read the name. He read it again. He said, Calloway? Sung-hyun said, yes. Jae-Won said, her mother's family name. Sung-hyun said, yes. She was born Bridget Calloway. She married Marcus Delacroix in New Orleans. Jae-Won said, what does the Calloway name mean? Sung-hyun said, I'm still mapping it. What I have so far. Jae-Won said, tell me what you have. Sung-hyun had been building his map of the Calloway network for 16 hours. The Calloway name was Irish in origin and old, not old in the way of organizations that had been formalized and registered, but old in the way of things that existed before those categories applied. It operated through loyalty rather than structure, through relationship rather than hierarchy. It was not a criminal organization in any sense that a criminal registry would capture. It was a network of people who owed each other things and who discharged those debts with a precision and a patience that had kept the network intact across 3 generations. It was, in its fundamental architecture, the opposite of the Yoon Syndicate, and it had been positioned in the background of Sienna Delacroix's professional life in a way that was invisible unless you knew to look for it. Sung-hyun said the engagement that brought her to Seoul, Henry Yo consulting contract, was brokered through a contact who traces at 2 removes to the Calloway network. Jae-Won said she was placed here. Sung-hyun said the engagement appears legitimate in every professional dimension. Her diagnostic work is genuine, but the chain of referral that brought her name to Hanryo's attention originated in a contact with Calloway connections. Jae-Won said, does she know? Sung-hyun was quiet for a moment. He said, my assessment is no. Her behavior inside the engagement is consistent with someone who is operating on entirely professional terms. There is no indication that she understands the network she is connected to or has any knowledge of how she came to be in Seoul. Jae-Won said, find out who runs the Calloway network. Sung-hyun said, I already have a name. Jae-Won said, does she know? Sung-hyun was quiet for a moment. He said, "My assessment is no." She was positioned by people who knew. She walked into that bar and she acted. She did not know why she was there. If you have ever watched someone do the right thing without knowing the full weight of it and wanted to find out what happens when they finally do know, hit subscribe to Dark Magnolia Stories. Episode 11 drops Friday. The two worlds share the same room for the first time. Declan had spent the day running the name Sung-hyun was simultaneously running from the other direction. His report to Seamus was precise. Yoon Jae-Won had initiated a deep background investigation into Sienna Delacroix within 12 hours of the 41-minute meeting. The investigation had already surfaced her mother's Calloway maiden name. Within 48 hours, at the current pace of Sung-hyun's work, it would surface the connection to Seamus himself. Seamus said, "How much does he know?" Declan said, "He has the maiden name. He knows the network exists. He doesn't have the architecture yet." Seamus said, "How long?" Declan said, 48 hours, 72 at the outside. Seamus picked up the glass. He did not drink from it. He said, "And what do we know about what he wants?" Declan said, "The meeting lasted 41 minutes. She left first. He stayed 11 minutes after she left. The channel was clean. We have no content. But he made direct contact, which means he did not approach her through operational channels. He approached her as himself." Seamus said, "As himself. Basa." Declan said, "Yes." Seamus set down the glass. He said, "Find out what he wants. Not what his network wants. What he wants." Declan said, "If he finds out who she really is to the Calloway network." Seamus said, "He won't. Not yet. She doesn't know, and she cannot know yet." Declan said, "Seamus, what if Yoon finds out first?" The Atlantic made its sound. Seamus was quiet for a long time. He said, "Then we move sooner than I planned." Sung-hyun said the name, so Jae-won recognized it immediately, not personally. They had never met, but the name had appeared once at the edge of a file he had reviewed 14 months ago in a context he had not then understood. He had noted it. He had filed it in the part of his memory reserved for things whose significance was not yet clear. It was clear now. The man who ran the Calloway network was connected at 3 removes to the waiter's handler. The same network that had tried to remove Jae-won from the world had a connection, distant, deniable, the specific architecture of something that was meant to be untraced, to the man who had been for decades, watching over the woman who had saved Jae-won's life. He was quiet for a long time. He said, "The Calloway network knew about the attempt on my life." Sung-hyun said, "The connection is distant. It would require..." Jae-won said, "Did they know?" Sung-hyun was quiet. He said, "My assessment is yes. At some level of the network, someone knew." Jae-won said, "And they sent her." He sat with the information for a long time. The Calloway network had known, through its intelligence connections, that an attempt on Jae-won's life was being planned. They had known who was behind it and what the mechanism would be. They had positioned one of their own, unknowingly, it appeared, from her side, in Seoul, in the same hotel, on the same evening. She had intervened. She had saved his life. She had disappeared. She had not known why she was there. He looked at the note card. She had come to Seoul on a consulting engagement that had originated through a Calloway-adjacent referral. She had walked into the Grand Hyatt bar, the same bar where he had been meeting a contact, the same evening, the same whiskey. And she had seen a waiter with trembling hands and a poisoned tray, and she had acted. She had acted because that was what she did. because her father had taught her on the banks of the Mississippi that beautiful things required protection and that you carried the tool for interruption so that when the moment arrived, you were not empty-handed. She had not acted because she knew who he was. She had not acted because she understood what she was in the middle of. She had acted because she could not watch someone die over a glass of whiskey. The Calloway network had placed her there. She had not been placed in order to save him. She had been placed in order to be where she was needed. And when the moment arrived, she had been exactly who she was. He looked at the note card. He did not take it down. Seamus Calloway had been carrying this specific weight for 34 years. Since the year that Bridget Calloway had married Marcus Delacroix and gone to New Orleans and become, for all practical purposes, someone else's life to protect rather than his, he had let her go. He had watched from a distance. He had done what the Calloway network did, positioned people, maintained connections, ensured that the lines of protection were in place, even when the person being protected did not know they existed. Bridget had not known. Marcus had suspected and chosen not to ask. Sienna did not know. He looked at the photograph. He thought about Bridget at 22, standing in his kitchen in this same house, telling him she was going to America. He thought about the argument they had not had because he had understood before she finished speaking that it was not an argument he was going to win. He thought about the letter he had sent to New Orleans 6 months later, and the one she had sent back and the particular calibration they had arrived at. Not silence, but a considered distance, maintained with care on both sides. He thought about Sienna at 12, standing in this same kitchen, looking at everything with those eyes that were Bridget's eyes, and also, around the edges, the older eyes of a family that went back further than New Orleans. He thought about the summer she was 17, and the nod he'd given her on the cliff path and what it had meant, and whether she had understood all of it or only part. Yoon Jae-Won was looking for her, not for what she knew, not for what she had done, for her had spent 34 years keeping the people he was responsible for from being found by people who wanted them. He was looking now at a man who had found her and who wanted something. Something that Seamus, who had spent 70 years reading what people wanted, could not yet fully name. He picked up the photograph. He set it face down on the table. He said, to no one in the dark, not yet. They had never spoken. They already understood each other. Jae-Won understood the woman who had saved his life had been there because a network that operated through loyalty and patience had positioned her, and she had acted not because she knew the stakes, but because she was exactly who she was, and the woman who was exactly who she was had declined his offer of protection and was sitting 11 floors above him in a Seoul hotel room with a closed matrix and a private column that contained 4 things she could not explain. Seamus understood. The man who had been looking for her for 8 weeks was not looking for a threat to neutralize or a debt to collect. He was looking the way people looked when they had encountered something they had not expected to find and could not put down. In Seoul, Jae-Won told Sung-hyun to find out what the Calloway network wanted. In County Clare, Seamus told Declan to find out what Jae-Won wanted. Same evening. Same instruction. Different rooms. The woman neither of them had spoken to sat in a hotel room 11 floors above the city she had been working in for 9 weeks, with a closed matrix and a beadwork panel that was not yet beautiful, and the particular quality of someone who was present rather than perfect, and did not know that 2 men on opposite sides of the world were, for the first time, looking at her from the same angle. If you are watching Whiskey and War for the first time, episode 1 is waiting for you. 1 bar, 1 glass, 1 woman who could not watch someone die. If you have been here since the beginning, episode 11 is the episode where the two worlds meet in the same room. You will want to see it. Subscribe to Dark Magnolia Stories, new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Whiskey and War, Afro-Korean romance, dark love, New Orleans, Seoul.